Burning questions.
Insightful answers.
Listener's choice.
With Clement Manyathela.
On our Listener's Choice feature today, we have been asked by one of our listeners to talk about déjà vu. Listener's Choice is an opportunity for you to co-curate the content of the show with us. So we decide all the time what we do on the show, but we've decided to do this feature from the first day I started doing the show to dedicate every Wednesday at 11 o'clock to talking about what you want us to talk about. And yes, we do that on the open line every day, but this is a moment where you can say to us, talk about this and bring an expert to explain this to us, or maybe you didn't discuss this further, or can you bring in somebody who can touch on this? How do you do that? You send an email on cm@702.co.za with whatever suggested topic you have, and then we'll get the relevant experts to come and explore that with us. Today, we're talking about déjà vu, because one of our listeners asked that we do this. It's a French term meaning already seen. You know that feeling of having experienced a present situation before, even though it may actually be new? It's quite a common phenomenon. How many of us have had the feeling that we've had the very same experience before? Maybe something that happens, or something you feel, something you see, or something you think, and then you see, then you think, hey man, I've been here before. Either I've dreamt about exactly the same thing, or I've lived this experience before. I've had many moments of that. And I wonder if you've experienced that yourself. 011-883-0702. I'd like you to give us a call to share your experience with us. And how have you rationalized it? The WhatsApp line is 072-702-1702. So I've invited two guests this morning who can talk to us about what really déjà vu is and how we can explain it in a cultural way, or African spirituality kind of understanding, but also just the neurological, the scientific way of understanding it. So we're going to start this conversation with Dr. Gwen Tonyane, who's a specialist psychiatrist, joining us on the line. And then I'm going to bring in Gogo Dineo Ndlanzi as well, who's a spiritual teacher. And if you've got any question for Dr. Tonyane or for Gogo Dineo Ndlanzi, give us a call or send a WhatsApp voice note. Dr. Tonyane, welcome to the show. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me again, Clement. And good morning to the 702 listeners as well.
Yeah, I'm going to start with you here. Maybe explain what déjà vu is from a, psychiatric or neurological point of view.
I think the way you describe it, déjà vu, which is a French term for meaning already seen, it is a false sense that you have witnessed a situation before when you do have a memory that you haven't actually had it. So the brain is a network of neurons that use electrical activity. So maybe an easier way, maybe from a neurological point of view, it will be there's a glitch in the circuitry. Right, and that's how often it is described. But in psychiatry or in any medical model, we always look at any condition or any symptom from a biopsychosocial point of view. So it could be that there is another medical condition, a brain illness that is presenting with déjà vu as a symptom or as a part of a syndrome. It could also be from a psychological point of view, a processing of information or encoding issue, right? And then from a cultural or a psychosocial model, we look at it as part of, it could be a gift, like an ancestral calling or a spiritual gift. So mainly from a biological point of view, it is usually something wrong with the electricity or the neurotransmitter or the anatomy or the physiology or the neurochemistry in the brain itself.
Are there any known triggers, like, for instance, stress or fatigue or anxiety that can make déjà vu, I suppose, occur more likely?
Because this is a common phenomenon. I mean, research and some evidence-based medicine is talking about 70 to about 97% of normal human beings experience this. And because it's a fleeting thing, it is something that comes and it goes, most people don't report it and actually experience it as normal. I think the times that we sort of patients present to us, if it is happening quite frequently and the intensity and it's presenting with other associated symptoms, then, we group it as more sort of a medical thing that we need to be concerned about. And because it can happen as a part of a medical condition, right?
Yeah.
So like I explained, the brain is all chemistry, it's all electrical activity. So think about it in this way. If there was a fire in the electric circuit, right? And I think that's what most people experience as epilepsy or know to be epilepsy, when we have bigger muscular groups involved, when there is this uncontrolled fire in the brain that then presents with, motor symptoms, usually affecting the big muscle groups where people have fits or convulsions, all right? Or they can have falls, loss of sphincter control. So that could be sort of part of that, right? And it can also present with what we call an aura. So before you get those motor symptoms, you sort of get déjà vu and other associated symptoms that might suggest, I'm about to get this big fire in the brain. And that would be more of an electrical fire in the brain where you can't see anything, all right? But you can feel there's a smell, there's something that has gone untoward.
Something familiar.
The chemistry itself.
Yes. Oh, and it's so quick when it happens. And I wonder, at what point should we be concerned, Dr. Tonyane? Because I've had many moments where I feel that I'm like, hi man. And then because it's so quick, there's not even enough time to just, record it or talk to someone about it, So when should we be concerned about how often then we experience déjà vu?
All right. So when it presents with, like, as part of a medical illness or a neurological disorder, for instance, things like stress, fatigue, using psychoactive substances, caffeine, temperature changes, high emotional states can trigger it, right? Because when it happens in like natural settings, like you said, it comes and it goes. And usually sometimes there's no trigger because it just happens out of the blue. That's why you can't catch it, right? The times that we do worry, let's say, for instance, it presents with commonly what we call temporal lobe epilepsy. Now, with temporal lobe epilepsy, like you've been to the studio a couple of times, and suddenly, it feels like this is an unfamiliar, or you have been here before, and that presents with other symptoms, things like what you call dysmegalepsia, where you're seeing changes in objects, the sizes and the shapes, right? Then it's presenting with something else. When the déjà vu then presents with other symptoms, what we call olfactory hallucinations, tactile hallucinations, all right, that could be part of the temporal lobe epilepsy itself, an aura, or a form of a psychotic illness such as schizophrenia, for instance. So olfactory hallucinations, what often happens with déjà vu is that it'll present with a sense of a smell. It's usually something rotten or smell of blood or some untoward smell. Or tactile hallucinations, they'll experience certain bodily sensations. Then that's when you should worry when it happens in the context of that.
All right.
Some people, maybe it might be disorientation. So if it presents with other symptoms, then you should seek medical help for it.
All right. Dr. Tonyane, I'm going to park you. I'm going to go to Dr. Dineo Ndlanzi in a moment. But on the WhatsApp line, someone says, Clement, I felt this. For example, I would meet someone for the first time and have a conversation. And then I would feel like I've had this conversation with this person before in the same place. So weird.
Good morning, Clement. I didn't know that what déjà vu means. However, thank you for, that explanation. I've always been asking people, what does déjà vu mean? However, let me say, it happens to me, especially since growing up, since young age, when I dream about a place I have never been. Within 2 months, I'll see myself in that many places. I've been to towns I've never been to while growing up. And then when it happens in real life, I will remember exactly, this is what I've been dreaming about. So I can have a dream where I cannot even explain what happened and then forget about it. In 2 weeks or 3 weeks or in a month's time when it happens, I remember this is what I was seeing in the dream. Wow, it's a déjà vu. It happens to me in dreams. And then it will follow up again physically. Eating from Marshall Town.
Hi, Clement. Oh my goodness. Ketani from Midrand. I wish I was here for this conversation. Work calls. I believe deja vu is your alternative self from an alternative universe who's lived that experience, and now you get the opportunity to remake that decision in this world. Especially when something feels like, oh, I've dreamt this before. No, you lived it before, somewhere else, another time, another place. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah. I used to think, did God maybe like erase or our creator, whatever you believe in, like erase our memories and like said, okay, now we pick up from, you're going to relive these experiences again, and then for God to erase some of the memories with some of us. Yeah, but it's so fascinating trying to understand it. Gogo Dineo Ndlanzi is a spiritual teacher joining us on the line. Togoza Gogo, John.
Hey, Togoza, I'm cool. I like it when you call me doctor. I think you're prophesying something here, so I don't mind it. Every time I come on the show, you call me Dr. Gogo Dineo Ndlanzi. I receive.
It's receive. Keep prophecy.
Yeah, I'm okay.
So help us understand this from an African spiritual perspective. How do we understand deja vu?
I think, one thing that people must know is that the brain operates from familiarity. So anything that feels unfamiliar can sometimes, induce an emotion of fear, even though there's no danger that is involved, such as deja vu, because it's not familiar. But what the deja vu is an experience that actually returns you to memories that you have locked outside of yourself. So in spirituality, when we're having deja vu, it's either a sign of a spiritual awakening, a confirmation of something, or a soul's communication. Because we believe that not everybody's a new soul. Some of us are returning souls. So when people say, I've got an ancestral calling, you've got a soul calling. The calling of your ancestors sometimes is slightly different from the soul's calling. So when you're having deja vu, is your soul remembering? Is your soul recalling experiences before this current lifetime, experiences of your ancestors, experiences of other experiences that have come to actually help and aid the soul in its soul's mission. So deja vu is not supposed to be really scary, but because it's unfamiliar, so the body will respond to things that are unfamiliar, as an emotion of fear or anxiety, for example. But because it's also short and brief, so it happens so suddenly, and we are used to something. In order for something to make sense, it must actually give us an explanation. But deja vu doesn't. It's like, I've seen this before, and then it goes, right? And then you go back to your normal senses. So then it leaves you hanging with that, but what could this be? Because I didn't learn it in a classroom. I didn't learn it at home. Because remember, our upbringing does not really nurture the soul and spiritual body. We nurture the emotional body, we nurture the mental body, we nurture the physical body, but we don't nurture the spiritual and soul body because we believe those exist outside of us. So when we're looking for divinity, we source it out outside of us. When the divine awakens in us and it starts to communicate through us, it becomes scary. And one of the communication forms of divine communicating is deja vu. You had a dream. I had a listener say, I had a dream. I forget about what I've dreamt about. But the spirit will remind you because it is important. Then you have a deja vu moment, right? I had another listener saying that it's an alternative part of us that is connected to the universe. No, it is a main part of you. You are a soul body. The soul is not physical, is not tangible. So how the soul reminds us of its existence is through experiences like deja vu.
Yeah. What's your advice for people who actually want to have some explanation? And I don't know if it's even possible to, remember or record them, because as you said, it happens so quickly that there's no time to even rationalize it. It happens and you recognize that I've been here, or I've thought about this before, I've been part of this experience. And then you go on with whatever conversation you were having. So for people who say, but I want to understand that more, like, would you advise they consult a traditional healer? What to do?
Yeah, we don't turn to the spiritual and the soul body that much. So when you do regular spiritual checkups, like a consultation, but ritual as well. When you do rituals, when you get these experiences, you can actually acknowledge them because it's a muscle. If you don't exercise it, it will not grow. When you say like, oh, I've seen this before, and then you go and like, what are you trying to tell me? What is spirit trying to communicate with me? Why am I seeing this again? It's trying to communicate with you because part of you returning, it has to do with what happened then with that green board that you are watching right now that feels such a strong feeling. And it's not to be scared of it, right? It's to also look what else is happening around you besides just deja vu so that you can be able to rule out if, we are on the verge of a psychotic clinical psychotic collapse here that's happening. I was diagnosed with temporal lobe epilepsy years ago in 1999, but I was going through an awakening. So, there's a thin line between the nervous system and the soul body because they operate in similar ways. So when you can do rituals and normalize tendering to your spiritual health, then when you get these experiences, then you can realize, is it ancestors communicating? Is it my soul communicating? Because the problem is, again, like I said, Clement, we've given ancestors so much power. We've given power outside of ourselves, not realizing that, hey, ancestors don't have a body. So they don't come here to dictate and enforce their way of being. They've come actually and been assigned because we reincarnated or incarnated into the physical body with a mission at hand. That mission doesn't come from the ancestors. It comes from source, which so that comes because they said, hey, there's a mission on earth. So when you come here, there's certain things that you must not come with so you can still have a human experience, right? Yeah. So you lock them out somewhere and then you will recall them as needed. So you're not overwhelmed as a human floating on spiritual realms and ethers without really knowing how to actually have human relations as well.
Yeah, listen to this. I got a message from a listener who says, hi, Clement. My son, who's 21 years now, once mentioned that he was married and had 2 daughters and a son. He was about 2 years old at the time when he told me this. And he told me not to mention this to anyone. He said he died when he was 50 and they lived in KwaZulu-Natal. That's Buntle in Kempton Park. Nare, you're calling us from Blegori. You've got a question. Hi.
Hi, Clement.
Sure. I'm good, man. Go ahead.
Okay. Yes, this thing as well is like reading as well. I don't know. I had this thing when I was young. Maybe I was 12. I had this cousin. He had a book, like an encyclopedia,
Mm-hmm.
When I read about America, I read about the Pilgrims, the Puritans, and all the Plymouth colony and Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Maryland, all those places. I felt like I once lived in America. I had that connection. I don't know, that strong feeling. I mean, even after that, when I get older, I started to listen to American music, songs like Raining Nights in Georgia. I felt like actually I know Georgia. As if I lived there in Georgia, I lived in Savannah, and I end up, become obsessed with America. And I almost know, places of many places there. I could meet in Americans could say to me, you sound like someone who lived in America, because, I end up
a lot about America. That's amazing, Nare. Yeah. Dr. Tonyane, from a neurological perspective, what's that explanation when someone feels like, I feel like I've been to those places?
Look, it is like I think Gogoma, my other colleague mentioned, it is a symptom of familiarity, right? From a psychological point of view, or we lay our memories or our first emotional experiences when we don't even have the words for it. So sometimes it could be just an encoding and retrieving of memories. So something that you've heard, something that you've seen, like he explained now, that there was somebody in the family. So it could be, no matter how the brain sort of encoded that information and processed that as a memory. So an input and then equal that to a memory. There's also I think my other colleague mentioned it, what we call in psychology dual consciousness, where sometimes deja vu, we believe that it could be a transition between your consciousness and things that are happening in your subconscious. Especially if you're anxious, you can have dissociative states that can present like deja vu, for instance.
Yes. Gogo Ndlanzi, your explanation there on that?
Yeah, so the thing is that people must understand that when you have deja vu, the minute you start become obsessive about it, it's no longer deja vu. And this is where people can distinguish between being on the brink of a psychotic fallout or psychotic illness coming through and a spiritual awakening presenting itself. So if you say, I have a strong feeling I've lived in America, you're not going to now turn your whole house into an American house, want to speak American that you can't speak. So when you start seeing the behaviors change to emulate that strong feeling that came, then that's quite problematic. Because with deja vu, it comes and goes, and then you've got many different experiences as collecting the different puzzles of the past memory that you've had before you've come into this memory to help you, as I said, with why you've come again. It also comes quite suddenly and briefly. And I think what bothers people is because it's so sudden and so briefly, and they want more because they want to hold on to it. Remember, in spirituality is not about attachment, but connection. So you are still connected to that memory. When you do the things that you need to do, like your rituals, and your spiritual health being taken care of, you will be able to access the memory more, not only through deja vu. It's also sometimes feels like a feeling of I'm disorientated because you literally for a split second taken into that lifetime while you are consciously in this lifetime. And this is where sometimes science might look at it as a psychoticness issue, whereas it's still a spiritual issue. Like I said, if somebody's behavior transforms completely and they start to become obsessive about it, then it's not an issue of somebody having a spiritual awakening or somebody having to have had a spiritual calling. We could be looking at a psychological issue here.
Amazing. Let me wrap up with this message from Samu, who says, Clement, I strongly believe in reincarnation. So deja vu, an inexplicable certainty or this familiarity we have when we meet a stranger, is us remembering a past life experience. We are forever interconnected to the different planes, humankind, and our experiences because our souls live forever. That's Samu there in Morningside. Dr. Gwen Tonyane, specialist psychiatrist, and Gogo Dineo Ndlanzi, who's a spiritual teacher. Thanks to both of you for helping us understand really what deja vu is all about. It's 11:32.